welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. How do you do in a transition? I like to use the metaphor of triathlons. I do triathlons. I've been doing them for 11 years. I transition from one thing to another. It might be first you start to swim, and then you get to your transition area, and then you bike, and then you get to the transition area, and then you run. And that's a metaphor for life. So many of us are in transition, and we have some amazing guests tonight. In fact, their story is so amazing, we're doing 2 shows on them. So we have the first show, and then there'll be a second show. And imagine doing the Appalachian Trail. A lot of people have said, yeah, I'd like to hike the Appalachian Trail. It's over 2,100 miles. But so few people really, really do it. And our guests tonight have just completed it. And it took them 2 years of planning. It's such an amazing story. And I want our guests, Margie and Sarah, please introduce yourselves. Tell us when you just completed this marvelous, marvelous expedition. And tell us how it even began.
My name is Margie,
and your last name.
My name is Margie Sanders, and
I'm Sarah Mercier.
And yeah, we started this plan. I guess the seed was planted for me when I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
I had a relative who was planning on doing the trail, and so we were at his house for a family reunion, and I walked into this one room, and there was this room full of these tiny little boxes from floor to ceiling, and I was like, what is going on in here? And he told me that was his food supply for the Appalachian Trail that he was mailing to himself along the way. And he kind of bent down, you know, he put his hands on his knees and kind of bent down, got in my face and said, you should do it someday. And you know,
wow.
Quite a few years later, obviously, I was able to do it. I was able to do it.
Wow. And how were you inspired to even do this? Did you have a childhood thing too?
Unfortunately, I didn't. I grew up in Michigan and, you know, was outdoorsy and things like that. But hiking really, I enjoyed hiking, but I never thought of a long distance hike. And when I moved to Nashville, I became friends with Margie, and, you know, she had talked about it, and you know, just kind of enjoyed the outdoors and hiking. And so when it all started, we started talking about it, and we, you know, decided we could really do this. I was like, I'm in, I'm game, you know, like I never had that lifelong dream of wanting to do it. But as soon as I heard about it and did a ton of research on it, I was like, this is definitely something I want to do while I can. And it was just an amazing time from the beginning of when we were like, we're going to do this, and all the way through the end, and it was really great. She was really committed to it. Like once she said, yes, we're going to do it, she was like, we're going to do this. And I was like, I have to admit, I kind of was like, you know, I could just buy a camper and have like weekend warrior, you know, but no, it wasn't good enough, you know, and so we really sat down and we're like, are we going to do it? We need to commit to it. I mean, we're in our early 30s, you know, this is not the time to, you know, by normal society or, you know, rules to uproot and go and do something like this. You know, this is the money-making years or whatever. But we made the commitment to do it, and it took 2 years to save enough money so that we could, you know, go have our life auto-drafted. I mean, I still, you know, had a mortgage, I had student loan, but we sold, you know, cars and got all of our finances in order. But that was probably the hardest piece, was saving enough money to do this in a way that we were going to enjoy ourselves. There's a lot of, you know, in any research of, you know, when someone starts to think about the Appalachian Trail, they're going to read all these books, or, and which we did. She read pretty much every book. Pretty much every book that was out there, I'm
How
pretty
many
sure.
books are there out there?
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of information, and you don't think about it if you're not interested in the trail, but as soon as you start, that seed gets planted, you just get engulfed by it, and it's just, you can't get away from it. And as soon as you decide, I want to do this, it consumes you.
Yes.
And you find every reading material in the internet, and you seek out other people who have done the trail so that you can get hands-on information. And that's what we did. And so I had a lot of time to read on airplanes, because in my career I traveled every week, and so what better to do on an airplane than read every book you could find about the Appalachian Trail.
Wow, so that was part of your planning process. And what kind of work do you do?
I worked for Frito-Lay out of their headquarters facilities in Texas, and I traveled around the country working with the distribution centers. So I was gone quite a bit. So it was nice that once we had decided we were going to do this, you know, to get grounded, get my feet planted on the ground, and no better way than to walk 2,000 miles.
Wow. And then the unique thing is, and I've just been learning from talking to y'all, that you started tell us where you started. And a lot of people start from the south and go up, but you started from the north and went down. And tell us kind of like where that began and where it ended.
Well, so we decided that we wanted to go southbound. And
which means?
From Maine, Millinocket, Maine, down at where Katahdin is, which is the start of the Appalachian Trail. It's
in Maine?
in Maine, in Millinocket, which is, I'd say, a little bit north of
Bangor?
It's more north of Bangor, Maine. And so we started there, and we wanted to come south to Springer Mountain, Georgia, which is North Georgia. And a big reason why we decided to do that is because I'm from Nashville, and so I needed kind of the psychology of walking towards Nashville, towards the south,
homeland,
coming home. That gave me a big advantage of being able to finish, because you know, bless the people who went the other direction, because it's tough. It was really tough.
Wow. So, and you started out in what month?
We started May 19th. We were about 2 weeks earlier than the majority of the folks that start in the north. We were just chomping at the bit, and we had booked our flights, and we weren't going to change it. So we got up there, and there was nothing else to do but hike. And so we started May 19th, and we finished November 9th down in Georgia, in Springer, Georgia.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
It's a long time to be hiking.
And be away from your animals.
But it took us 2 years to plan for that 6-month trip. And, you know, without that planning piece of it, we never would have been able to finish.
No.
And the pieces of
that.
your planning, and I understand you were the main planner, right?
I was all about logistics. I loved planning for this hike. They have a guidebook. I know, it's weird.
I'll explain.
There's a guidebook out there that shows you mileage and trails and tells you all the trail towns. And so, again, I had a lot of time on the airplane, so I purchased the book in January or March, and I went through and I calendarized our entire trip from the time we would start to the time we would finish. And so the logistics of it, I loved it so much. I had so much fun. Like mentally, I hiked the trail about 6 times before my feet ever touched the ground.
She did. She put down how many miles we were going to hike every day. I mean, this is a 6-month calendar. Every single little block, she put how many miles we were going to hike every day, and then she put RS on a day after
RS,
like 4
rest?
or 5, and that meant a rest stop.
Okay.
So we had to stop, and I was like, how many of those do we get?
Yeah, so the planning of it was so much fun, and because of all the planning when we were on the trail, for me, you know, to actually be out there and seeing it, it was like, you know, I've seen this in my mind 1,000 times, you know, this specific landmark, and to be there and touch it and take my picture with it, it was so like satisfying, I think, you know, to be able to go and have the big plans, because like you said, there are, you know, tons of people who always talk and, oh, I want to do that someday, and unfortunately that someday never comes around because life happens. And so for us, we were fortunate to be able to do it while we could and enjoy it while we were out there. And so planning for it was a really big part.
And this massive plan, that day 1, day 2, Did you follow it? Was it correct?
We were close. It was never, yeah, it was just sort of a general guideline. My mom actually kept it, and she would tell me, you know, how many days off we were, or, you know, oh, you're doing great, you're 2 days ahead of schedule, you know, so the one piece about the trail is flexibility. And I knew, you know, writing down 6 months in advance, you know, it's not realistic that you're going to hit all those days, but we were close on the length of time that we took, and there were some times where we were right on schedule, and if we needed an extra day of rest, it wasn't a big deal because you just had to be flexible with it.
And
but we were close.
Being flexible, I think, was one of the most important pieces of being successful out on the trail, because anything and everything will come to pass. I mean, from, you know, 4-foot mud puddles that come out of nowhere to, you know, rainstorms, continuous lightning, damaging winds, to gorgeous weather, unbelievable encounters with strangers throughout. I mean, it was almost the whole eastern, you know, United States that we walked. And,
Over 2,000 miles. It's
and
incredible.
The people that we were able to meet, you know, and just, it was just unbelievable. And the wildlife, you know, that we were able to be so close to, and, you know, just we're in their living room, essentially. And
Right,
it was,
along.
it's really incredible to look back on our experience. And, you know, we've been home we got done in November. So we've been home for a few months, and, you know, I'm still thinking back to, you know, I can remember every state line that we crossed, you know, and what that was like. And
Is there a special little plaque that says you are now entering?
they'll do a border, they'll have a sign, yeah, and, you know, so we took a picture at each one of those border crossing, and it was just, and we had our own traditions and stuff that we
You had
would
your own
do,
little
and
rituals?
dance parties.
Dance parties
Dance parties.
for
Bites
the new state?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the new state.
Yep. It's a big
And
deal.
we had a lot of fun.
That's
We had a
great.
lot of dance parties. We took some videos, you know. She did all the cameras, taking, you know, and
Did you have a video camera, or did you use a phone?
I
or-
had my phone, and then I also had a point and shoot digital camera that did video as well. So it looks like I never hiked the trail because all the pictures of her and
You're behind
'cause I was
camera.
the only one that had the camera. There's only like 4 pictures of me on the entire trail.
Oh, no.
she did do it though.
Wow.
there.
I believe it. Wow. Well, like the first week, I mean, the first week, what is that like? Okay, 2 years of planning, here we are. And it's like a disappointment, or it's like invigorating, or it's colder than hell, or what are we doing here? What did you go through all that? or-
All of the above. For, you know, that first week was so, what is the word? Intense. Because it is the 100-mile wilderness that you start with.
Ah,
In the direction that
wilderness.
we were-
Wilderness.
Right. So when you start with, if you're a southbounder or Sobo, that's what you're starting with. You're starting with the 100-mile wilderness. And then, you know, of course, northbounders, that's what they're finishing with. It's like the last kick to get home. And so it was, I mean, I love hiking and backpacking, you know, just as the next, you know, weekend warrior kind of thing. But our first 9 or 10 days really pushed my limits.
Push your limits mentally, physically, what?
All the above, everything.
Like why? What?
The weather, it's one thing to hike on the weekend and then pack up your car and go home.
Right.
But when you have to put on frozen boots and frozen clothes and go hike in them for another 12 hours and do it again and again, you know, just, I mean, physically it's difficult, but more so mentally, you can't really plan for that unless you do it. And so all the planning that we were doing, we never put on frozen boots.
We should do that.
If you're
That's
going
a
to
good
plan,
way
yes,
to
if you're going to
plan.
plan, go find the
put on-
worst weather you can and stay out a few days in it. So, you know, the weather was one thing we really couldn't plan for. We knew the mileage, you know, what we needed to do, because the first 10 days there's no place to resupply to buy more food. So we had to carry 9 days worth of food. So we had those mileage days that that was the one time we knew we had to hit a certain mileage for the day.
No shower.
Yeah. And
No
so,
showers.
No shower, no, you can't, no house shoes.
Wow. And then what about the water? Water.
Yeah.
9 days, what are you doing for water?
Water was everywhere. It was completely, the trail was at times completely saturated. We were crossing rivers, streams, ponds. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference between any of them, and because it was just so much water, and so we were crossing, 8 streams or something like that.
So didn't you have to purify your water, and then how did you carry the purified water with you, or?
Yeah, we had a purifier, water purifying system that we got, and we did a lot of research on all the different kinds of water purifiers that are out there, and we decided what we liked best and what was going to work for us, and so we filtered every time. I mean, we didn't ever skimp. So any of our water, we had to, at the end of the day, you were done hiking, you went and got your water. It meant get the filter out, go find the stream that may be, a quarter mile or half a mile.
Down the mountain.
Down the mountain. It was always down the hill.
Down the mountain, climb up the mountain with the water.
But you go and you filter. We had a 2-liter bag that would filter for clean water, and then we'd bring it back and, use it to cook with, and not drink too much, because we really made it a point to not go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. That was one of the things we tried to stay away from.
No liquids after 6 p.m.
Nope.
Because you didn't want to get out in the blackness.
Yes.
The darkest dark I have ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
Wow. And then people want to know, when you're in your tent, did you hear a bear? Did you hear things rustling out there? Or
there were so many noises that there was one night I had to put my earplugs in because I was so terrified of all of the noises. So earplugs are really important on the trail.
Well, don't you want to hear the noises?
No, I didn't. I didn't want to.
You chose not to hear it.
I really felt safe in our little tent. I felt like that was going to protect us, so I was okay. I was okay with that.
Not hearing them, but
Not
that
hearing
could be
them.
something out there.
Oh yeah, they were out there for sure.
Who is they?
But at the
We
same
want to know.
time,
I never looked. Never looked.
at the same time, we would be above tree line, on top of the mountain, and there were no trees, no bugs, the birds. I mean, there wasn't all of those guys were down below. So we were up high enough that it was so quiet. It was a little too quiet. So I'd end up putting in my earplugs.
So you had your earplugs so you wouldn't hear what's out there because you were terrified, but you couldn't see out there anyway. I guess you could put a flashlight out there, supposedly, right?
No.
No.
We could have.
I was pooped. I mean, that's not the best word to
You're
say,
just
but
too
I was
tired and
tired.
whatever. They won't bother us. I don't want to hear about it.
You start to get used to it, I mean, that first week it was like that. It was like a little uneasy, but then you start to get used to being out in nature and for a long time. I mean, it became our job to hike. That was our, 8 hours.
So typical. You wake up in the morning, you hope the weather's good, and then you pack everything up back. And stay tuned for the next show, because we're going to have both of them take the pack and show us what's in that pack they've been carrying around. But I digress.
Yeah.
So the routine, you wake up, sun comes up, okay, put on the frozen boots, let's get out there.
Yep, and that's exactly what it was. It was a routine. Like it didn't take us long to figure out what our roles were going to be as far as camp duties and, who was going to be responsible for what. And so, we would get up and go get the bear bag, get your food, eat breakfast, and pack up the tent. On a good day, when we knew we were going to go into town and get food, we could be up and ready to go in 15 minutes. We were done. We were gone.
So you would allow yourself, sometimes you would have food with you. You'd cook it. right? But then sometimes you go, hey, there's a town, let's go to an actual
Yes.
restaurant.
Yes.
Oh,
And those
yes.
are the days that we're like, okay, 15 minutes, tent, camp is packed up and we are on
Trucking.
the trail.
Yeah.
Because we knew, the way it would plan out was typically before we would get to town, we would only be, no more than 12 miles from town. So that was maybe 4 to 6 hours worth of hiking, so we knew that we could get there pretty quickly, and so those days went by much faster than there's nothing around for 3 days. Those days it would take us a good hour to get up and get
Sometimes,
A little
yeah.
dawdling.
Well, if it was
Little bit.
cold, if it was really cold, I just didn't want to get out of my sleeping bag and my long underwear, and I was, snug and warm.
Yes.
And, yeah. And it was it's really hard to put on cold, wet clothes.
Oh my heavens!
And
I
it
can
seemed like
imagine.
that was how it was for a good first 281 miles, it seems,
Wow.
Yeah.
which is Maine.
Which is Maine.
Yeah.
It's through Maine.
Yes.
It's cold. Never got
Maine
warm.
stood out.
Yeah.
Maine.
Yeah.
As-
It was
That's
rugged.
May.
It was
Yes.
May, and
Wow.
But it was gorgeous. It was the most amazing views I have ever seen in my life. You're on top of a mountain and you look back and you see the mountain range that you just hiked. Like your little legs just carried you
Carried
those
you.
17 miles, over those 4 mountains over there, and you just did that. So to be able to, to see that even on a day when it's rainy and you can only see 100 yards in front of you, you're still like, I'm on top of a mountain in Maine right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Amazing.
this is amazing stuff. It was,
Wow.
it was
Yeah.
great.
So this was 6 months. 6 months. And so what percentage, like each month, would you actually allow yourself, okay, there's a town, we actually get a shower. Would you say out of each 30-day period there you'd have like a non-tent day, how many days?
well, I have to say, Maine really stands alone as kind of the most remote piece of the trail, because it seemed like once we got out of Maine, we started to. It was a very social trail. The trail goes down sidewalks. It goes through towns.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
would walk past a Arby's or McDonald's,
Really?
and it was like
On the Appalachian
tons
Trail?
out.
Yeah, the first subway we got to, we
And
were
at
just
3, 4, and
amazed.
5.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, in the state of Maine, there are 5 towns. And each town is no less than 9 miles off trail. So you have to figure out how to get into town.
Wow.
And so those in Maine, we took a lot of days off because we figured it took us so much work to get there. We're going to enjoy
Yeah,
it when we're there.
we took a day off in every single town.
Good for you.
Heck yeah, and we enjoyed the towns, and that's probably one of my favorite pieces of the whole experience was enjoying the towns, having time to kind of explore and meet the people and eat at the cute little muesli bagel down the street and their coffee and it was always food, but it was just fun to explore the towns and really kind of hang out for a day instead of completely dedicating it to the trail only.
Right. You
So-
actually had, and those towns, they were used to you guys.
Yes,
Right?
yeah. Some of them, like Munson, Maine, it's the first town we came to, the last town for northbounders. Like hiking is what keeps that town,
Yeah.
Alive?
alive.
Absolutely.
That's
It was
So
for
they
sale.
welcome you.
yes, yeah. That's
town-
they, without the hikers or the snowmobilers, in the winter up there, there's 2 little hostels in town, and without the hikers, there's really not much
Not much
else
happening.
going on. And so, yeah, they embrace the hikers. They welcome them. They want them to take time off and visit their
Yeah.
establishment.
We stayed at Shaw's.
Shaw's?
Shaw's is a hostel in Munson. So it's at the end of the 100-mile wilderness. It was our first
Hostel.
Amazing Grace. It was our first cooked
Hot meal.
hot meal, aside from what we were making, but we got a bed and a shower. It was our first shower. It was
It's
It was
like all the
amazing.
things you take for granted, And amazingly, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
a hot shower.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think the 100-mile wilderness was really a boot camp for us to
A boot camp. That's
kind
a
of
good-
get like, all right,
Yep.
are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it? You know, can you do it? And we made it through, and we pushed on. And
Was there any thought during that whole time, let's quit?
Never quit. No, never once were we going to throw the towel in. There was
No.
one point in time in Hot Springs, North Carolina, which is only about 300 miles from the end of the trail, where we both were like, I'm tired of hiking. Like, I'm tired. You know, I want to do other things. We've been doing this for 5.5 months now.
Wow.
You know, and we enjoy doing other things like riding bikes and rock climbing and fishing and just other things. And so when we've been hiking for 5.5 months, you're just kind of, okay, but the fact that it took us all the way, you know, down to Hot Springs, North Carolina, you know, that was pretty great.
that's a good run.
Yeah, you know, we just
Yeah,
got some new
but-
shoes, you know, got a shower, rested for a little bit, and revived.
And you went through how many pairs of shoes?
I went through 4 pairs of shoes.
4 pairs of shoes on the Appalachian
And
Trail.
they make a big difference when you get a new pair of shoes. It really does.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, it was a gorgeous day.
Yeah.
That day that it happened for both of us at the same time. And you know, when we hike, we don't really talk.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We didn't talk that much
Yeah.
while we were hiking. And so, which was, you know, majority of the day, but it was just one of these days, and we're going up this hill, and I wasn't hiking very well. I was kind of, I don't know, I just kept, you know,
And you had the
kicking my
poles?
feet, and we had our trekking poles, and nothing was going really smoothly, and I just stopped, and I turned around, and I looked at her, and we both were like, I'm tired of this, I think, and I'm ready, just, you know, something. I need something. So we got to Hot Springs and got some beer and got
Get a
some
beer. That's it. Let's
beer and
have
a
a
burger.
beer.
Yeah, beer and a burger.
And some new shoes, and it really revived us.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were ready to go again.
Wow. You know, there is so much to this story. And I think that, and part of me, I'm so curious on what you carry on your back and everything. And we're going to be definitely going through that on the second part of the show and all. So, and I feel that people will be able to watch this show and go, hey, I want to do the Appalachian Trail. Look at those women. They did it. They did it. They had a good time.
Yep.
You know?
Anybody can do it. Anybody
Yes.
who puts their mind to it. The trail is 90% mental.
Yes.
The
90% mental.
Yes.
physical aspect of it, it's difficult, but it's your brain telling you, yes, your feet hurt, but you have to keep hiking. Or your knees are sore, but you just have to keep hiking. It's gonna rain, but you have to keep going. And
Wow.
we saw people from an 18-year-old guy who just graduated high school all the way up to, I think he was 72-year-old guy who was out doing a through hike. I mean, it's
Wow.
all walks of life, all ages.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you both very much for telling us about the Appalachian Trail. Stay tuned. We have show 2 coming up. It'll be great. We'll learn more details. Thank you, Becky Meagher, for Transitions. Have a good night.